When investors fire their property manager, I find they often don't have a plan. And without a plan, you'll find that it's going to cost you far more to do this poorly than it is to just have a bad property manager. So let's cover the best ways we can do this together. Hi, I'm HoldItwithPMJen, and I am a 22-year property management veteran. I've been out in the streets doing all of the tasks that keep residential rental properties healthy, stabilized, and producing for their investors. And I make education for you just like this. Let's get started today on how to hold your property manager accountable and how to fire them if needed. Before we get started, let's talk about some of the risks of doing this poorly. The biggest risk of terminating your property manager, let's say clumsily and without a plan, would be losing tenancy, would be communicating to the tenants some way that their housing's insecure. So through this transition, they get the idea that this isn't the place they want to live anymore, that this isn't going to be suitable for them, and qualified, compliant tenants pick up and leave. That would be the most costly consequence to doing this poorly. But there are others. So not making sure you get all of the assets to your agreements. That's a huge risk that people don't think about. As well as making sure all the final accounting is appropriate, because there's no way to usually go back and correct that from the future. Before we go down the road of firing the property manager, there are some times when you discover something or learn something and the relationship does need to be over, and we're going to cover that. But there are other times when you're just simply not satisfied with the performance of your property manager. Maybe they're being negligent in some tasks or communication. Maybe they're not executing on things that you thought they'd be executing on. Maybe you're just not really sure what's going on, and that lack of communication is giving you a lack of trust. There are ways to address this with most property managers. So I want you to put your concerns in writing and submit them. Now, how do we submit them? Well, if there's a ticketing or help system, you can use that. Also, you can work with the property manager you usually work with. If I've done those basic things and I'm ready to take my communication up a level, I'm going to take it directly to the broker of record, to the person who holds the broker's license for that office. They are the person who, according to the state, has the license that actually is controlling all of these activities. So I'm going to go directly to the broker with clear and professional communication of the issues and how I expect them to be resolved. Typically, making this sort of communication to the broker will get their attention and get you some time in front of them to work this out. So what we are often doing is calling their leadership's attention to an issue that maybe hasn't been in front of them before. Now again, if you've been doing this and not getting communication back to those people who are responsible, that's a huge sign that you're never going to get any satisfaction and you need to move on. But if you get the attention of, say, the broker and property managers, and they get together, what you're seeking is understanding and a plan you can believe in. So if it's going to fail from this point on, it's because that manager can't come up with a plan that you believe in, or you all come up with a plan that you can believe in and they don't execute on it. That's how we need to be thinking about this, that we are looking for a plan that we can inspect, follow, and hold them accountable to, and whether or not they do that. So a couple of different things you can use to get attention: certified mail, of course, putting things in writing, phone calls, that sort of thing, but you want to keep it professional. We don't want to use elevated emotions, things like that. So you've tried to work it out and maybe they didn't follow through on the plan or they're not responsive. Great reasons to terminate a property management relationship. Other great reasons include no reporting. So no providing to you a monthly reporting package of what's been going on in your property. Additionally concerning, and I hear this so often, no draws. Draws are what we call the money, our clients' money that we send them on a monthly basis. Not receiving that, particularly not receiving that with no explanation, is a problem and should be a reason to sever that relationship. Little known, not thought about, but another reason to terminate the relationship probably immediately would be if there's disciplinary action taken against the office or the broker that you're working with. That would give you a sign that maybe that's not a person you want to work with anymore. You've made the decision to terminate the agreement. Let's get into the agreement and see exactly how we can do that. So you're going to look for notice of termination or management termination. Those are the kinds of words we would look for. Maybe you can even use your AI to read your management agreement and break this down for you. But you're looking for how is that notice to be delivered and what sort of timeline. Is there a contract end time? It needs to be 30, 60, or 90 days before the end of that. Is it rolling, like 30 days notice you can terminate? So what are the terms there? How do we communicate that? And listen, if you have an end of a contract opportunity in the next couple of months, that could work well. Maybe though you just renewed your agreement and you're looking at 11 more months of services on this agreement before you can terminate. Well, that doesn't mean you're stuck. It does mean though you're going to have to negotiate this agreement to end at a different time. And oftentimes this is possible, but it's going to mean representing and advocating for yourself really well. So you've given your notice, you've notified the property manager that you're terminating the management agreement. We're not going to get into how you go out and hire the next property manager because the first video in this series took care of that. Go back to. But I do want to talk about how you prepare to be ready to move to that manager. So after you give notice, you want to have a discussion and get really clear on when things are going to happen in this termination. So when do services stop? Is it the final month, somewhere in the month? Is it on the last day? Things like utility payments, things like inspections, things like lawn care, snow removal. Exactly when are those services going to stop from your current manager? And when will they start with the next one is something you'll figure out. Who's holding the security deposit? So making sure you get all of the security deposits that your manager should be holding for you. How will they be delivered to you and in what method? And a big one, how and when will tenants be communicated with about this change? And so that's something that good property managers will work with you on and make sure that your wishes are included. They have some rules they generally want to follow, but this is about giving tenants a sense of security through this transition so that you don't lose tenancy. It is not in anybody's best interest for tenants to change housing simply because you're making a change in management. You're also going to want to know the timeline for when things are going to be delivered. So whether that's leases, tenant information, keys, could be garage door openers, things associated with the property, passwords, keyless entry codes, all this kind of thing needs to be packaged up and you know when you're going to get delivery of that exactly. Now it's time to actually transition management. So maybe we've gotten to the point where the previous manager that we've just terminated is going to be done and the new manager or we are going to be doing those duties instead. We need to make a plan. So is the new management or we going to pick up with these tenants? The former manager, we talked about how they were going to communicate the end of their working with them. How are we going to communicate the beginning of working with those tenants? How are we going to get all the materials picked up and integrated into our systems? Making sure all of the utility billing is transferred. So utility billing is tricky, right? We could have common meters, meters we're paying for tenants because that's just the nature of the lease. And so those bills might have been going to the previous manager. How are we making sure they're going to the new manager? You'll find that management companies are very helpful onboarding you, but when it comes to offboarding you and getting all of those accounts changed, they usually leave that up to you or your new manager to hire. So they might do you the service of letting you know when things come in after management has ended, but maybe they're not obligated to. You want to be really clear on that. Now, once you've received all these materials, I want you to go through them and check them. I want you to check all of the keys that you were given, keyless entry and passcodes. Check them and make sure they work. Paperwork. You should have received a lot of paperwork for your tenancy if there's tenants in place as these transition. For each tenant in place, I would like to see as much of the application packet that the property manager is willing to share. They might not be able to give you certain parts of it that they got from third-party sites, credit reports and things like that, but they should be able to share with you like the actual application where the tenant provided, identifying information. Every manager has different policies, but I'd like to see you get things like date of birth, social security number, emergency contacts, things like that that were provided on the application. I want you to see a full tenant ledger history. That is the account from the very first moment they moved in and paid their security deposit up until the most recent rent payment. I would like you to have a full accounting of their entire account history. Ideally, I'd like you to have a work order history so you could see all the work that was done in that property over the term of your ownership. It will inform the new manager to know how to handle things. I want you to get move-in inspections, whether they were done on paper inspections, photo, or video, and the lease packet. The lease packet should have all of the lease information, should have any addendums, lead paint addendums, everything. Make sure if your property is pre-1978, you get a lead paint addendum. If there's rules in your municipality about having different addendums and disclosures, make sure that they're there. Now, I want you to go through the entire document. Make sure there's no missing or illegible pages and that all signatures and initials are exactly where they need to be. You do not want to go back to this document when it's time to enforce it in court and find that you don't have what you need. So I need you to be checking these right when you get delivery at the transition of management. A little hint, I find that property managers can drag their feet a little bit on providing these things, particularly when you're a client who's departing the business. Make it easy on them. Let them know in writing exactly what you expect and when, and they will likely work hard to achieve it. And if you don't get it, those written demands being clear and timely are really going to help in your pursuit. There are ways that you can pursue this if you have an uncooperative property manager. Let me know in the comments if you need a video about that. So we've taken delivery of all the materials. We've made sure utility bills are changed. We might have even had to talk to the city codes office to change the designated manager on file, whether that's to ourselves or to a new manager. I think anytime you change management, it is a really good time to walk all of your units. So I would walk every door, basement to attic, with the new manager. Again, if you're not hiring one, it's just you. But I would do a walkthrough to kind of set a what is current condition here and what are our concerns, risks, what are we going to do next? Your final accounting should be available within a couple of days to a couple of weeks after your management ends. And I want you to review that thoroughly. Make sure the final statement, income and expenses, all make sense and all the money that was due you has been delivered. You can expect year-end reporting in a 1099 the following like January, February from when you terminate management, just like you get every year. So even if you terminated management in say March 2026, well, the property manager still has accounting and income to report for you in the year 2026. You will get that final accounting. I mean, you can very likely get final reporting from the property manager earlier and you'd get that at your termination, but expect to get a 1099 then in January or February 2027 for your 2026 tax year. One of my best tips for success through this process is keep your communication in writing, keep it professional, keep it succinct. That's going to keep everybody accountable. Maybe you have a phone conversation with your property manager at some point. I love to make sure that I document that phone call directly after. I find it really drives accountability. Hey, property manager, thanks for the call. For purposes of documentation, we discussed the following 3 action items. Here's 2 for you, 1 for me, and the deadlines we discussed. We'll be getting ready to get on those. Have a good day, right? That just keeps everybody accountable. And when that property manager or anybody receives that sort of communication, I think they know you're on top of it. You're watching and they're more likely to execute on your behalf. Working with property managers is usually a joy. Believe me, they are amazing and great, but not all of them are going to work for every single investor. So knowing how to find, hold accountable, and then if necessary, fire a property manager is an important skill in any investor's bucket. Do you know I make a podcast called Hold It with PM Jen? Find it on any podcast player. I've been telling stories from the business. They are juicy, they are real, and super, super informative and educational for somebody looking to learn about this kind of a life.